Ugh. Well, that was one boring as hell apocalypse.
Those were up, and they did.
We're smart, and my...
He told me enough.
No, I.
Here's Chuck.
Hey everyone, it's Don G. Corleone here, and I'm here with a brand new rant. And this rant is going to be for a film from 2016, and it's for the next of the final two members to feature the X-Men team. And one of two final reviews for the team films before we move on to the solo films. And it was for the last one to be directed by Bryan Singer, and that's going to be 2016's X-Men Apocalypse. And what's the plot of this movie? Well, since the dawn of civilization, he was worshipped as a god, Apocalypse himself. He is the first and most powerful mutant from Marvel's X-Men universe, and he amasses the powers of many other mutants, and becomes immortal and invincible. And upon awakening after thousands of years, he is disillusioned with the world as he finds it and recruits a team of powerful mutants, especially a disheartened Magneto, to cleanse mankind, create this new world order, one which he will reign in. And as the fate of the Earth hangs in the balance, Raven, with the help of Professor X, must lead a team of young X-Men to stop their greatest nemesis and save mankind from complete destruction. Of course this has to be about Raven. Oh man, the most annoying character of the new versions. Of course it's going to be about her. And I'll get to that stuff later. Let's just review the movie right now. So it was around December 2013 when the film got announced by Bryan Singer, around the time the Days of Future Past teaser had come out, and Kimber Dudley and Harris Ford Tash developed the story. His casting of the film began in October 2014, and filming commenced in April 2015 in Montreal, and it ended in August of the same year. Then, after the movie was shot and marketed, X-Men Apocalypse would premiere in London on May 9th, 2016, and was released in the United States on May 27th, 2016, in Real D 3D, IMAX 3D, 4DX, and Dolby Cinema by 20th Century Fox. Of course, this comes out the weekend I graduated high school. Of all the third entries I had to get on graduation weekend, it had to be this. It had to be this one. Just had to be. Because guess what, guys? Unlike the last two team films, this one got mixed reviews from critics. The reviews aren't as bad as the next one I'm gonna get to, but they were much lower than The Last Stand. They were not as low as X-Men Origins, or as low as the next one that came after this, but they were pretty low. 48%. Oof. Now, as for my reaction, I didn't end up seeing this in theaters because I just did not really know what to think about this, seeing all the ads. What I do remember is when the poster that had Apocalypse choking Mystique was apparently controversial with people. Because apparently most of this lady who must not be named fanboys properly. And I don't think it's controversial. I don't give a shit if it's so controversial or not. The only problem I have with the poster is that it just really spoiled the finale for most people, and it's misleading because it makes people think Mystique dies in the film when she doesn't. So I think it's misleading, really, to just have nearly one of the scenes of the finale be the poster. Be one of the posters. So maybe, to me, that's why it shouldn't be a poster. Not because it's a fake character getting choked. because it's just spoilery. Other than that, I'm fine with it. I mean, I don't even like this fucking character anyway. This version of the character anyway. So I could care less. What happened, if she died or not. Another point is even though this released after Deadpool, I was just about on X-Men fatigue, so I saw no point of this film's existence really. Now that I've seen the movie and honestly before the next one came out, this was probably the third worst film of the franchise. Honestly, it's not aged well. I think it's badly paced, it's too boring, it's lazily written. And another thing about this movie just basically takes elements from the OG movies, like X-Men United. Yeah, X2, which was a better version of this movie. This movie's basically just a boring version of it, with a lot of elements from it stolen. Professor X getting kidnapped. Except this time gets kidnapped fucking easily. And the X-Men have to go save him. Yeah, that's X-Men United. Literally a part of the plot from X-Men United. Except this time instead of the X-Men, of course it's Raven, because this movies need to badly be about Raven having to be the one to save him. Oh, yeah. Then again, now that I think about it, Mystique is the one who gets the most screen time, more than any of the mutants we're supposed to be watching. And Professor X. So hell, you want to know what this movie should be called? Mystique the Movie. You might as well call it Mystique the Movie, because this movie feels like it's about Mystique. And we hardly see the villain Apocalypse a lot. This film had pretty bad points, I found. The pacing of the film was sluggish. And of course, they gloss over Havoc's death. He was close to the explosion, but I thought it got everyone. Never mind. That's how this scene goes. He thought, when Quicksilver saves everyone from the mansion, they act like Havoc's death means fucking nothing. And I thought it got everyone, oh well. Wouldn't you be fucking concerned, you moron? Someone just died in there, and you're instead of feeling that sad, he clearly doesn't give a fuckiness to person. Yeah, I'm talking about Quicksilver, guys. Yeah, oh my god. Yeah, again, it's we never got to see, honestly, but just, yeah. It's good to see a big cast, but the Horsemen from Days of Future Past, this post-credits, they're just there to be there. And with the, as exceptional, we now see Storm in this one. The Storm was, I guess, fleshed out of the baddies here, but everyone else was just not. Angel built up as a seasoned warrior. It gets introduced in a cage fight, and apparently just beating the Blob, and goes through 10 fights undefeated. We don't see any of the fights. Then he meets Nightcrawler and gets his ass handed to him in minutes. And in the rematch, he still struggles to put up any kind of fight. So basically, Angel's a fucking joke. Psylocke, who's played by the girl from The Predator 2018, Olivia Munn. Yeah, that's who plays Psylocke in this movie, guys. Yeah, from the Shane Black Predator movie. Just is literally just introduced in a room and is Calvin's bodyguard, and then meets Apocalypse, decides, I'll join Apocalypse, because it's just random. We just need another member for the bad guys team. We don't explain why she joins Apocalypse, just sees Apocalypse, of course I'll join ya. For no reason. Instead spending more time with this character, especially you're now 2.5 hours, and you can't even spend time with these new characters first. Instead, we spend more time with Mystique or these newer X-Men I don't even like and are not interesting to watch. And Professor X, most of the movie, is literally a dude in distress that needs to be saved. And then when he does get saved and fights Apocalypse, he gets his ass kicked easy. And another part of that I'll get to in a bit. It starts off okay. At first, it's paced well. At least you introduce some characters here. And then you find yourself lost because all the characters are just jumbled up. And the focus on the movie gets lost. From that point on, the pace of the movie just feels draggy with no tension. And the film even suffers this quality of writing. We know Magneto, who's supposed to be a psychopath, he's now good, or is he now bad, or is he even the same character from the other movies he's supposed to be portrayed as? Like, same like for any of the other characters. Like, you don't know if Mystique's good or bad, but she's still bitchy. Like, she still has to always be bitchy in these newer films. If you're supposed to make her a great character, why does she keep acting bitchy? I don't fucking know. Oh yeah, Angel, like, X-Men 3, like, he didn't do much in X-Men 3, but even he was portrayed better in X-Men 3. Like, I thought Ben Foster did fine for what he was given, despite the little screen tiny guy. Like, I thought Ben Foster did pretty fine for the role. I think he just needed more scenes. Like Ben Foster could have been a perfect, I thought Ben Foster was a perfect Angel. But here, like, this Angel is a joke. Like, yeah. Like, this movie's just slow. The effects just look forced this time, and, like, the building's falling. Like, no one cares about that. Like, Jean Grey I felt was miscasted here. Like, the British accents doesn't really try to pull off American accent all that well. Like, just poor acting. Like, but now how does our movie start? Well, we start off, like, with the Days of Future Past post-credits in 3600 BC. And you have our villain of the movie named Apocalypse, or Ensabanur, who's played by Oscar Isaac, is the powerful mutant that's the first of his kind. He rules ancient Egypt. And because of his ancient health, he's facing death. He has this variety of destructive superhuman abilities, like telekinesis, psychopathy, teleportation, and ability of augment over mutants' abilities. Then he follows a ceremony which his consciousness gets transferred to a man's body to gain his healing factor. And he and his 4 followers, the Horsemen of Apocalypse, are conspirators. And the conspirators could access the sunlight, and it stops the transfer process midway. Then his followers get killed, and he is entombed alive as the entire pyramid collapses on itself with a pillar holding it up, and it's destroyed by the conspirators. Then, though, before he dies, like, one of the followers puts Nur's new body into a casket, and a shield's put around it to save it from the debris. And then a called Nurse survives and succeeds to find the location of his tomb, and his awakening happens in 1983, right there. And now, so he awakens, and he believes humanity lost its way without his presence. So Nur's emergence, it causes a tremor that gets felt worldwide, and now he wants to destroy the world to remake it as his own. So he recruits chiropractor Storm, who is now played by Halle Berry this time, and is this time played by Alexandra Shipp, and can control the weather, and then upgrades her power. Then in East Berlin, because, hey, this movie's about Mystique once again, we start off and first see Mystique here investigating an underground fight club, and discovers another mutant champion as Angel, and this time he's played by Ben Hardy. He's possessing his pair of large feather wings on his back. Now you have Nightcrawler, who's now played by Cody Smith-McPhee, who can teleport. So, Raven rescues Kurt, employs the services of Black Marketeer Caliban, who is played by Thomas Lee Marquis, and this guy would reappear again on Logan and would be played by Stephen Merchant instead, literally a year after this movie, and they transport him to America. So then, of course, we see our villain Apocalypse again, and he's recruiting his team. He recruits Caliban's enforcer Psylocke, who we all know, like, she can project purple psychic energy into the form of Energy Blade, and then Psylocke leads him to Angel. And then Apocalypse enhances both their powers, and Angel's wings get turned to metal wings, and this design of Angel was cool. Right here, like, unfortunately, like, since Angel gets portrayed as a joke in this, most of the time a joke in this film, like, you think they would do better with this character with the cool new wings they get? No, they don't. The story's just far too simple. There's this ancient, powerful mutant called Apocalypse. After a central power nap, he just gets reawakened, and mankind wants to destroy mankind. Because how else are we gonna need a third act fight scene? Like, he unites this new set of mutants, or old mutants, or younger mutants, whatever the fuck, and then amplifies their powers and kidnap Professor X most of the movie, and want to use his mind powers, and then the mutants have to pretty much set out to stop him and his rogue mutants that save Professor X. Yeah, where have you heard the Saving Professor X subplot before? X-Men 2, and it was better. Trust me, way better. And that's about it. I wouldn't mind this if they try to be more creative, but it allows some connective tissue. Like when you're writing something like this, you could at least try to add some character dynamics or arcs, or world building and have some, or unless you don't want to do that, and just have a bunch of complicated plot points that just prompt the characters to go along until the final blowout. And we do neither of that here. And the story just feels empty and unmotivated. And when you get to that second act, after almost 40 minutes of character introduction to pointless meandering, the film goes to this pointless Wolverine cameo, which was fucking disappointing. And we go to, and then a young Stryker kidnapping mutants for some weird reason. And then after the pointless Wolverine cameo, then they get to Egypt to go get Apocalypse and rescue Professor X. And there's no rising or falling action. There's no themes that give the lasting weight or explanation to the jumbled continuity. So what was the point of the Days of Future Past ending when Wolverine got taken by Mystique or something if he was just going to get, that version was going to get found by the real Stryker anyway? They do not explain that? No. At all. So what was the point of that ending scene? Nothing. There's barely any 80s era stuff. Instead of pointless banter about apparently Return of the Jedi was bad. Wow. No, it wasn't. I bet you Singer just put that in there because he's just jealous he can't make a good third entry. And in this movie, it acts like Apocalypse is so powerful just by destroying a city, because where has that been done before? A lot of times. He's just powerful because he's a bad guy. He gets a good performance, but they just act like he destroys because he's a bad guy. We need a bad guy to be powerful. So after Apocalypse recruits his team, Angel, Storm, Psylocke, and Nightcrawler, Apocalypse recruits the three, Angel, Storm, and Psylocke. Nightcrawler goes and joins Raven's team. These four, know how cool Nightcrawler was in X-Men United? What is Nightcrawler useful? Has purpose in this movie? No. He has, these four have, no purpose outside of fighting. Raven at one point positioned herself this revolutionary for the mutants and then does nothing. Magneto gets a new family to start this movie, and it serves no purpose, they just exist to die so that he could get sad, be evil again. There's a stupid plot twist involving Quicksilver that goes nowhere. And it's once again only there to just get the same speed show from the last movie, and that was done better in Days of Future Past. Oh, this one character in Jubilee you wanted to see in these movies? That finally happened. Just gets the same role as the old X-Men cartoon. Nothing! And Jean Grey, here, in any dimension, comes close to that, just grows from this framed mutant that's tormented, and then just blossoms into this weird finale. And unfortunately, of all the characters that get lost, you think Apocalypse would be this intimidating foe. Apocalypse just gets lost. Now, I wouldn't mind these new additions to the team, but introducing them one by one, just makes way for moments where Apocalypse just sometimes gets nowhere to be seen. And when he does appear, he doesn't really seem to hit with the kind of punch you'd expect from when you first see him. Here, this guy had potential to be a great X-Men villain, and this guy gets nothing. He's just most of the other on-screen Marvel villains. Just little or no characteristics. He hates humans. He wants to destroy the world. Yeah. Most of what he even says is just long speeches with little meaning, and I can hardly understand a thing he said throughout the whole movie. Just trapping people to walls. Where have we seen that before? Lots of times, this guy's not even scary. Oscar Isaac did a pretty good performance when he was given, but the character was badly written. He looked the part well, but just something was really missing, and there was barely any good development with this character. Now, after Apocalypse team gets recruited, we get back to our other mutants, and we meet some other mutants here. We meet Alex Summers, aka Havoc, played by Lucas Till, who we know can absorb energy released with destructive force, and discovers his younger brother, and we finally see Cyclops in these new films, who's now played by Ty Sheridan. We all know who Cyclops is, and he manifests his mutation for shooting optic beams, and then Alex pretty much takes Scott to Professor Charles Xavier's place, where, he educates, is to the West. He's running a school again, and Xavier, and he hopes that Xavier and Hank will teach him how to control his abilities. So, then Scott meets with this other telepath named Jean Grey, who's now played by Sophie Turner, and a very laughable performance, and the two develop an attraction. Then Raven brings Kurt to the Institute, and Apocalypse's powers cause disturbances around the world. And Xavier Alice consult with CIA Moira McTaggart. Yeah, Moira from First Class is back, and we find out what she's been doing all these years. She was researching the legend of Nerd Egypt, and Moira has no memory of Xavier because he purged her memory in X-Men First Class. And then Xavier tells Moira that he has level 5 security clearance and shares like the intel with them. And there apparently Nerd always had 4 protectors with them. Where we already knew that, which were called the Horsemen of Apocalypse. And his original team, like they didn't get much of a role to just awaken Apocalypse. Then we see Jean Grey having nightmares about a destruction that's led by Dark Power, which is foreshadowing the events of the next movie. And words Xavier about that. Jean Iron is still learning to control her powers. Xavier encourages her to do so. And then we finally see Magneto after a whole long 40 minutes. Right here. Is living with his wife and his daughter. And he's using his powers to save a coworker, but then the militia decides to go capture him for that. And then they kill Eric's family, and he goes back to being evil and murders them. Then Apocalypse hacks into the internet, learns all of Earth's history since he has been gone. Apparently somehow this mutant should somehow apparently know how to use the internet. And it finds out Eric was the first mutant to announce himself. Yeah, we already knew that. Of course, like movie docs, like we need to know that again. Apocalypse then approaches Eric and takes him to Auschwitz. And Eric's powers were first manifested. So Magneto destroys the camp and then joins Apocalypse. Yeah. Yeah, right there. So now Apocalypse's team is all filled. Like, yeah. Now that I mentioned the movie being about Mystique, I'm going to make this. The Lady Who Must Not Be Named is even worse here than the last two movies. Like, at this point, like, she didn't even like the character. She wanted out of the character. If you want out of the character so much, why do you keep coming back to play her all the time? Like, just quit. It's like, oh my god. Like, most of it looked like she was sleepwalking through the role. Yeah. And apparently, like, I don't know why they felt like we need to explore this version of Mystique further. She's not even that interesting. Yeah, and they seem to follow the same pattern every other film. It begins, she has little faith in humanity's tolerance of mutants, and tends to be this frig figure that's embedded with villainous organization. Then, of course, Professor X and Beast keep trying to reach out to her, convince her of morals of peace, and still hope within her for a better future. But then, even though with plot progression, she goes back to her original state. She's pessimistic still, she's whiny still, she's conflicted still. Yep. Like, hell. Regardless of the original trilogy, like, Rebecca Romijn was more compelling, and I actually liked her better there. Like, nothing new gets added here. So yeah, like, honestly, like, stop trying to be about Mystique. Can we be about the mutants we actually care about? Like, can we actually be about Xavier or in these films? No. Yeah, like, my god. And on the subject of the new mutants we get in this movie, a majority of them are all underused, like Cyclops, Nightcrawler, Jubilee. It's nice to see Cyclops, Nightcrawler again. Nice to finally see Jubilee in a movie again. They're underused, and holy hell, like, these three were fucking brats. Like, they just come off as brats in this movie. Like, when Cyclops meets them, like, want to know what one of the things they do? Like, they cut school to basically go goof off in the mall, or go shit on Return of the Jedi. Yeah, of course, let's go shit on Return of the Jedi of all movies and act like it's the worst one when it's really not. It's an ironic joke, like, we can all agree the third one's the worst. Yeah, like this movie, this is a third entry. You guys are basically making fun of yourselves. But once again, I bet Brian added that because he's just jealous that Return is more liked than this whole boring movie was. And sorry, like, Brian Singer, like, this cliche just adds to Apocalypse. Because, like, yeah. And when we get to the Quicksilver sequence, like, the sequence was just done better in Days of Future Past. It's like, we just need that. Okay, they liked that in Days of Future Past. Let's add that again. And that happens when Quicksilver arrives to the X-Mansion to evacuate everyone and super speeds to Sweet Dreams, which is literally just almost rehashing the whole scene in the first film because they can't come up with anything new. And the character work that lends emotion and power to like the earlier installments, like, yeah, that's all missing here. The story just relies on emotional connections that aren't even established all that well, and it's literally supplies to the viewers. And the film like meanders with no purpose through its relationships, a series of first meet reunions that literally amount to just Jean and Cyclops meet. Oh, that's cute. Charles and Mora meeting again. That's cute. Raven and Hank McCoy, or aka Beast Simp Boy. How apparently they think that's cute when I never did. And little bits just sparks it all. It's just this trouble. Yeah, like. And it just fuels McNeil's entire emotional arc in this film. We're told why Mort disappeared in between the films, but not given any time to forgive what she had to forget. After we meet some of our newbies and all, and Mora's back, Raven then shows up and tells Xavier that Eric resurfaced and might be in trouble. So Xavier enters Cerebro to try and locate Raven. And then Apocalypse enters Xavier's mind when Xavier is using the mutant located computer Cerebro to locate Eric. And with Xavier's powers, forces all global superpowers to launch Earth's entire nuclear thing into space to prevent interference. And then the capabilities with the submarines, the planes, the ground forces are forced to self-destruct. And during the new lieutenants arrive at the mansion and they kidnap Xavier. And so Alex tries to stop them but accidentally causes an explosion that destroys the mansion. Then Quicksilver shows up and get the rehash scene because they're too lazy to come up with something new. Apparently we find out here he's Eric's son. And now hopes that Xavier can help find him. So he arrives to evacuate the students. If an explosion destroys the building, and Alex is presumed dead, and they clearly don't look like they give a fuck. Then, when they're on their little mission, Stryker then kidnaps Hank, Raven, Peter, and Mora, takes them to the military facility. Then Scotty and Kurt then follow, and they free their comrades with Stryker's mind-controlled, brainwashed they covertly follow, liberate their comments, and they use Stryker's mind-controlled experiment, which is literally this Weapon X, Logan or Wolverine, played in a disappointing cameo by Hugh Jackman. This Wolverine, is mind-controlled. This would have made an awesome subplot, but guess what, guys? When he shows up, we get a few minutes of him, and Jean Grey, partially restores his memories, and after his memories get restored, oh, I'm out of here. Later. Yeah, runs off to the fucking forest. I don't know what to do. What? I don't know. Sleep like a homeless bum or something like that? Or probably go to the Playboy Mansion or something like that? Or, yeah, probably that. Or probably go sleep in the fucking woods. I don't fucking know. But yeah, it was fucking pointless. You think, after Days of Future Past set this whole up in the ending, maybe Wolverine would play a bit of a part in the story? No. Jean restores his memories. I'm gonna restore your memories. He then was like, hey, my memories came back. I'm getting the fuck out of here. I'm not taking this fucking helmet off. You think, maybe that helmet will regain you evil again? How about take the helmet off first and then fucking leave? Just runs off this chick restored my memory. I get out of here. I'll go live like a fucking hobo or something. He's just never seen again. Or hey, when he's probably escaping, maybe the police find whatever, your memory's back, but you're still working for a villainous character, so you're going to jail forever. But your memories are back. What fucking cares? The script is clumsy. When we have to introduce characters, the audience needs to know them. It feels forced a lot of time. And Jean's introduction is really stupid. Storm's introduction is stupid. We never get to see her use her powers. And there's too many characters. The beginning battles on, and no one gets time to shine. And there's this section in the middle of the movie that just feels lazily forced. Yeah, maybe it's understandable why they had to put it here, but it could have been handled better. And it would not change much about the plot. The plot's the main problem in the movie. Some parts are unnecessary. They're forced to just sometimes show, and the movie just gets slow so it makes the movie boring and a chore to sit through. And some scenes are just way over the top. The end battle with this mountain involving Jean Grey, it felt stupid, and Psylocke's costume, it just looked lazily developed. Here, it's just Apocalypse is your typical tale of good versus bad. Just introducing, like, they just ran out of ideas here. You just get introduced to some new characters, like, just recasted characters for these versions. This threat facing this wheelchair-bound Charles Xavier in a school of youngsters. Yeah, which is all having to face Apocalypse. And we first meet him, he says ancient Egypt gets worshipped as a god. And of course, his worshippers betray him because they fear his power. And then he's collapsed the pyramid that kills his 4 horsemen, but then he awakens in 1983, wants to destroy humanity. Yeah, like, most of these parts, like, they're just so bad, they're distracting. Like, the dialogue is problem. Or just dubbing. It doesn't match. Sometimes it doesn't even match the lips. And the special effects, they look bad. The CGI is not very good. The sets are noticeable. And Apocalypse's makeup is obvious. And it's distracting as hell. And the Tyler character, Apocalypse, like, apparently supposed to be one of the coolest comic villains. But the film's villain more represents the shell of that. Like, Oscar Isaac gives a good performance with the effort he was given. No doubt, he was perfect for the role of Apocalypse. But the character motivations were badly written, and he had weak motivations, and he just wasn't all that menacing or memorable. Yeah, it's a lazily crafted script because they have no ideas. They just need to get elements from other movies because they can't come up with any new ideas. Here. And now, guys, we get to the finale. So, after the disappointing Wolverine scene, they're all free now. Stryker's defeated. So, yeah, they're continuing their mission now. And Xavier, while imprisoned and not even trying to find a way out, just sends his hidden mind message to Jean and reveals his position to her. And then at Apocalypse's behest, like, Magneto uses his powers to control Earth's poles, and it causes destruction across the planet and mass casualties. Then, of course, Apocalypse transfers his consciousness into Professor X's body and uses his power to enslave the minds of every person on Earth. Yeah, like, that's also... Yep, of course. And Professor X then sends a telepathic distress call to Jean, and they go to Cairo to go battle Apocalypse and his horsemen, which was a lazy done fight. So they rescue Xavier, but guess what, guys? Apparently because of the whole ritual, this is how Xavier, guess what? Loses all his hair and becomes bald. Yeah. Well, I'll get to that part. I'll explain that part later. Then Angel gets defeated and incapacitated. Magneto and Aurora are convinced to turn on Apocalypse. And with Cyclops' help, they keep him occupied physically, and Professor X fights him and gets his ass kicked in minutes. And then in the plane, Xavier encourages Jean to unleash the full extent of her powers, and incinerates Apocalypse. And then, of course, after Apocalypse is dead, they're like, wow, we defeated Apocalypse. Psylocke is like, well, my master's dead, I guess I'm gonna fucking leave. If that was just done to tease sequels, that was pointless because she didn't come fucking back. And yeah, I can't believe this is a ritual how Professor X lost his hair in this movie. We finally see this happen. That's the case, so he lost his hair by getting kidnapped, being put in a ritual, and then getting his ass kicked that easily. That's fucking stupid. That's fucking lazy, and that's fucking generic. Yeah, when you think for a moment, like, Psylocke is betraying Apocalypse, nope, apparently, because guess what? It's obviously Raven in disguise, and he starts to strangle her like in the poster, and I will admit, guys, this part had me smiling with glee, because while he was a lame Apocalypse was not that great of a villain, I loved actually seeing him strangle this brat. I was like, good, honestly, no, dude, snap her neck, please. No, she got saved, which fucking sucked. So yeah, Psylocke flees after Apocalypse is dead. Guess that was meant to have her return for the next movie or more sequels. That did not happen because, for one, Olivia Munn instead chose to go star in the shit 2018 Predator movie, and that killed her career. 2, we would have Dark Phoenix next, which would kill the whole franchise. So basically, her leaving and clearly hinted she'd come back was nothing at all. We don't see much of her after that. So then Professor X restores Moore's memories. I thought the whole point of erasing her memories was to make sure she forgot about your existence. Then the two rekindle their relationship, so First Class was fucking pointless. Then Magneto and Jean Grey help reconstruct the school, and Magneto's like, I can't stay with you at all. Yeah, so, yeah, he leaves, and then, of course, Quicksilver doesn't even try to tell that he's Magneto's son, so what was the point of this subplot? Nothing. And of course, to get the new X-Men now. We now see Beast and Mystique training the new recruits, now being the new leaders. And these recruits are Scott, Jean, or Roro, Kurt, and Peter. And then right there, that's over. The movie's over. Right there. So now it's going to be pretty much Mystique teaching the team, which is not how the comics works. Mystique's supposed to be a villain. Now she's teaching the X-Men. Yeah, and also teaching them with her simp version of Beast, who's constantly a simp for her. Yeah, the couple, probably the worst couples in comic book movie history. I actually don't mind Nicholas Holt's Beast, but I hate his romance scenes with Mystique. And that was only done because around the time First Class came out, him and the lady must not be named were dating. And they were not anymore after this, so you didn't need to have that anymore. But the movie's not entirely over because we still have a post-credits scene. And we see men in suits, they're visiting the Weapon X facility, they're getting data on Stryker's mutant research, with especially an X-ray and a blood sample marked Weapon X from the XSX Corporation. But this scene was pointless because that's not what happened in Dark Phoenix, so it was a pointless scene to add. Yeah, plus, the Weapon X Wolverine just ran off into the forest. So you didn't need this. Anyways, guys, but yeah, that's the end of Apocalypse, or as I call it, Borepocalypse. It's just not that memorable. It's hard to really mention much of it. And this movie was just boring. And honestly, if you've seen this movie, then you've already seen 2 and 3. And they're better. Yeah, you want to know what all this movie was? Professor X getting kidnapped? Yeah, that happened in X-Men 2. Not getting his ass kicked easily, though. This time he gets his ass kicked by a purple pharaoh named Apocalypse, who does a good performance of Oscar Isaac, but is a boring-ass villain. Gets a bunch of team members new, like Cyclops, they all do fucking nothing, and they're bratty as hell. This version of finally sees Storm in here, and she's boring as shit. Psylocke is boring as shit. Angel's more useless than Last Stand. And yeah, and the final battle's not all that great, and feels lame, and doesn't even feel it feels anticlimactic. But, with that being said though, is there good qualities? Yeah. For one, I did like we got to see a somewhat more sympathetic side of Magneto in this movie, and Apocalypse isn't a really great villain, but Oscar Isaac, I will admit, did a pretty good performance as the character, even if Apocalypse wasn't well written. James McAvoy still does give a fine performance as Xavier, even if his character is hardly portrayed well here. Just literally exists to be kidnapped by Apocalypse. So yeah, Apocalypse, it's not memorable, and it's boring as hell. However, that being said though, it's not nearly as bad as the next one. The next one is fucking worse. And that's gonna be the next review. So in the end, guys, X-Men Apocalypse, yeah, it's an avoid for sure because it's not that memorable. It's just boring as hell, it's forgettable, and it feels like a boring version of X-Men 2 almost. Just go watch X-Men 2 instead. That had a better version of this concept. Anyways, guys, that's it for my rant on X-Men Apocalypse, and we're going to make X-Men Apocalypse. Here's how I'm going to rate this movie. So overall, honestly, if you want to see this story, just go and read the Apocalypse comics instead, or just go rewatch X-Men 2 instead of this movie, because even though it's clearly seen better than this forgettable, boring flick, and if you're wondering how I'm going to rank X-Men Apocalypse, I'm going to give X-Men Apocalypse a 5 out of 10. There we go, guys. That wraps up my rant for X-Men Apocalypse. Sorry if I stuttered a little bit in this one. I just don't have this... My memory's not always all that fresh, so... I tried here, guys, but yeah. But yeah, that was my rant, but... I'm just done talking about it. And unfortunately, the bad does not stop here because the next two I have to review are also going to be rants. One epic rant for the last of the team reviews. And of course, a rant for what would be the beginning of the solo stuff. And I've already watched the first two Wolverine films now, so those are done. At least, but yeah. Now, I know some people will disagree with me on this movie, but yeah. Tell me in the comments down below, though, what you thought of Apocalypse. Whether you also think it's bad or whether you thought it was alright. But nothing rude. But remember, nothing rude, please. Till then, guys, that'll be it for this rant. Thank you all for watching. If you like this, want to see more, don't forget to like, subscribe to Don G. Corleone.